Well, wouldn't you know it, it's almost spooky season, so I decided to do something a little more special. I usually only cover one game per video, but this time I decided to cover 3 instead. These 3 games range in quality and atmosphere from genuinely great to just slightly undercooked. Without further ado, let's start up with... Don't Let Her In is a short, retro-style game made by Flower Studio. From the beginning, this game, art style-wise, really caught my eye. The best comparison I can give is that it looks pretty similar to Fate, the Unholy Trinity, both in an overall sense but also in the cutscenes. The story behind this game is quite simple. Your dad left 4 weeks ago, leaving you alone in the house with one warning on a note: do not let her in. We can choose from a male and female protagonist, which I find pretty neat. We wake up hungry, but first I decide to go to the bathroom, and we can actually see our own reflection in the mirror, which is a small detail that I really enjoy. We go downstairs and into the basement and get something to eat, only to be interrupted by something crawling outside, which really gave me a spook the first time I played. We check the living room. The TV is on static, the radio is stuck on an emergency warning, and the fridge is filled with by now expired food. After doing so, we hear a knock, and wouldn't you know it, we have a creepy woman at the window, begging us to be let inside. From here we get two options: let her in or ignore her. I will start with letting her in, which will give us the bad ending. She essentially gives us no choice but to eat worms. And I mean no choice. If you refuse, she will force feed you. She apparently does so for weeks until you wake up with pale skin and worms crawling inside your hands and face. We try to go downstairs but immediately collapse, and we are left with this last shot of a cocoon in our bed. This ending makes no sense if you don't go to the other route. Speaking of which, if we refuse and go back to bed, we will wake up 1 week later. We are still starving as there is no food left that isn't expired. We can actually see a change in our face if we check the mirror again. The creepy lady tries to get in once again, but we ignore her. This time we can also go inside our parents' room, only to find a cocoon that is still warm. We go to bed only to be awakened by something. We check our window only to see what appears to be a giant centipede crawling on our house. We leave the room only to hear something from the parents' room, and this creepy creature emerges and starts chasing us. We go outside only to be cornered by more of these creatures. We get captured and put inside the cocoon. The story, from what I can gather, is that people are turning into these centipede humanoid monsters, and they can infect more people. They take the disguise of girls in order to get inside homes and infect the residents. The infected go through a metamorphosis process and end up as yet another one of these creatures. Overall, I find this game to be quite fantastic. Its retro style, short length, and wonderful yet extremely creepy atmosphere makes this game a truly wonderful experience, and I really recommend it, especially if you like Fate. Don't believe me? Here, have an actual comment by the creator of Fate itself on this game's itch.io page. Stonehouse Orphanage is pretty mixed for me. It was made by Pixelbee on itch, and as far as I can tell, this is their only game. This game is short, like you can complete it in 3 minutes. You are an investigator trying to solve the disappearance of two kids in a pretty empty orphanage that looks more like a rundown apartment than an actual orphanage. The only person here is the nun, who has a pretty uncanny face. I can at least say that as a positive. You could talk with her about this place, sure, or you could just skip the entire conversation and cut to you drinking a suspicious stew. She also just teleports around very creepily, even behind your back. After we drink the stew, we immediately feel dizzy, and the nun asks us to lay down in one of the beds. But first we must lay our camera down. This is where my big complaint with the game starts, as for some reason here it bugged so hard my camera started going crazy and the cutscene never played and there was nothing I could do about it. The cutscene itself is interesting, though as we lay on the bed it is revealed that the nun is a tentacle monster that presumably kills us and makes us into the next stew. This game is almost good, but the whole camera going haywire and the slow movement I had really screwed it for me. I also don't like that you can just immediately skip the dialogue. I wish Pixel be the best in the future with developing a new game, but considering they haven't been active on it since forever ago, I'm not sure if we will ever see another game. Which is a shame since there was clearly a vision here. The game was made for a game jam and I feel like that also restricted the game in a way, since it would have benefited from a slightly longer development time. Bowels of the Ocean is our final game for this video. This one is made by Blake McKinnon Productions, who you probably remember from that one Santa horror game. This game has a pretty simple premise, which is that you get called in your dreams by an eldritch entity in the ocean, and after you make it to its temple you are tasked to feed it. First 5 small fish, then 5 big fish, and finally it tasks us with killing and feeding it 3 divers. The game is pixelated and has this oceanic fog that makes everything around us after a certain point to be extremely blurred. The ocean ambience really adds to the pretty unsettling atmosphere. Once our tasks are done, the entity tells us to come to it by going down into the center hall of the temple. We go and we see a long mouth with sharp teeth, and as we go deeper we get grabbed by its tongue and the game ends. We were tricked by this eldritch entity and are now one of its victims. Overall, a pretty good game. I just wish there was more to it, honestly. In conclusion, I am grateful that itch has become the home for indie horror games, as there are so many on it that are worth checking out. If you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for future videos. This being said, I was your friendly human sacrificing robot, and I'll see you all next time.